like a step over here.
Okay.
We're ready to roll this. Do we have any corrections to the agenda or the consent calendar? Okay, so let's have a motion then.
What did we have for the consent?
I'll second that.
I can have one.
Okay, we got a 5-0 on that. Thank you all. Look at that. We jumped right to payment of claims. Whoa, that's not bad. Yeah. So let's spend $1.8 million.
I move approval of payment of claims in the amount of $1,830,506.43.
I'll second it.
Okay, another 5-0 vote. Do we have any standing and ad hoc committee reports? Do you want to talk about the city today, Chris?
Yeah, I'll let John from kind of interject. It'll be a short one because the interim city manager's interim, which means he only will be here 960 hours or more, so he didn't really have a good grasp on a lot of the issues that we face. So if nothing else, we got to see Brooke and Tammy and talk about our recurring items. Paving is still a big one on the top of the list for them. Ray Jarvis was there. He was interested in that. Kick in on that one.
Hey, talk a little bit about Southwest Gas. They're putting a paving MOU together, as we are with the city. They finalized that paving reimbursement MOU with the gas company, but it sounds like the gas company has really slowed down on the work that they're doing in the city. I think because of contractor problems that started last year. Yeah, they were going to be doing thousands and thousands of feet every year for the next 12 years. So last year was slow and a lot of problems, and it sounds like this year looks like they're not going to be doing very much. So anyway, just a heads up on Southwest Gas and maybe that project being stretched out a little bit. But Ray will be in contact with Shannon and Julie and get our paving MOU going in the near future. A couple other things. We talked about street lights. That was fun. And
Are they getting pushback on that?
no, nobody's really heard anything. I think you guys are right. We just stopped billing, and Liberty stopped getting paid, and so I'm not aware of any streetlights that have actually been turned off yet.
What was interesting is I actually got an email that said, hey, the city of South Lake Tahoe this was a couple weeks ago, the city of South Lake Tahoe is planning for night skies, so come join us at a planning meeting at Liberty Energy. So we prompted, I think, their night sky planning initiative.
There you go.
Yeah.
Light pollution is real.
Yeah. They've got they're planning to reopen fire station number 2, and they're going to be doing some improvements, hopefully as soon as March 1st. And I think they have 9 new firefighters starting, so good progress in that area at the city. And there's also some talk about consolidation between the fire departments at the city and Lake Valley. So that was an interesting progress. And what else? That's it pretty much. We talked again about, we identified about a dozen locations where the city could modify their water connections. That same old memo. So we're reigniting that process. And it's been in their ballpark for a number of years, but reminding them of that. And really it's ultimately an opportunity for them to save up to $50,000 in fees per year and transfer those water connection services to new projects. So that was a great meeting I thought. I think Brad is going to be great to work with as long as he's there. And they're currently recruiting for a new city manager and our chief. So that's kind of in progress for both of those positions.
Cool. I got the impression that that was the only standing or ad-hoc committee. So is there any board member reports?
Yeah, I'd like to report, had a meeting, a special meeting with PRVA had last week about the new state requirements for mother-in-law units. Not necessarily mother-in-law units because they're meant for other purposes, but
Accessory dwelling units?
accessory dwelling units. And it requires jurisdictions to be able to provide for permitting of these units of 750 square feet, and they can have one. And but PRPA's got a problem because it's in conflict with a lot of their issues, their ordinances, coverage, heights, parking,
Density.
and density, which affects us. Because our system's designed based upon so many single-family units, and now we've got additional units and additional demand. So, but they're one of the parts of it is that you can't charge additional connection fees or fees. So anyway, I don't know how that will affect us. TRPA's also, the other issue with TRPA is how do they do it and do it for both sides of the state line, because that is where they have to make everything equitable. I think that because TRPA has been ratified by Congress, maybe they've got to go to Congress to get that bill, maybe get exempted from it or whatever. This is something legal.
I think there was a question whether TRPA was even subject to California law, given how they were formed. And I know that, at least in the district, that conversations I've been in, as you know, we haven't changed anything dealing with the district's administrative code for 80 years, waiting for TRPA to find out what they're going to do first.
The California Coastal Commission apparently has been exempted from these requirements, so if they're exempted, we're special too. That's just something that's probably going to be coming up, and I think that we need to
Keep an eye on it, but basically we need to be watching TRPA because they're going to be the ones going to be the
we gotta watch out for our side of it because it's revenue, and we're hurting that way.
Yeah, the state law is, basically doesn't allow new connection fees to be added for these ADUs, but it doesn't, but we would continue to charge for the ongoing user fees for any additional bathrooms or kitchenettes. So it's that connection fee component.
Right.
So we can charge.
It would still be a single family though. It would just be extra sewer and water units. Right?
Yeah, if you had a single family, they had an ADU, there would be no additional connection fee for that bathroom.
And it wouldn't be a separate account like a multifamily.
I don't know, there's.
I think if it comes off the existing line, if the ADU is either in the existing building, even if it's separate, if it's using the same line, you can't charge a connection fee. But if they want a separate connection to the ADU, a new line, then I believe you can charge a connection fee for that.
Well, I wasn't thinking of connection fees. I was thinking about a separate entire account.
The building, separate building.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Billing account and all that.
If they had a new line put in with a meter that served the ADU, my understanding that you can charge a connection fee for.
Anyway, just sold one bill on that parcel and then get to that.
Yeah,
Parcel
I
and
think
then-
so, unless you're off their existing water line and then extended that with a new meter to the back meter or something.
If it does, that's what most people do, is they come off the existing line and feed their ADU.
Right.
And just one other point, thanks Gary, the state law allows for one connected and actually another disconnected ADU per parcel. Right now, regulations for TRPA, you cannot do that unless you have an acre or more, so it's that, right now it's that acre.
Then there's a question there on the acre, because there's a lot of acre parcels in town, but they only got a little bit of it that people build on, so.
Yeah.
It's a coverage issue.
So a lot of it's, it's kind of in tier, TRPA's park right now. And we'll be ready to.
They realize they have to do something within the next, well, less than 60 days.
Really.
Yeah.
Well, that supposedly they have to do that, but remember, they're the TRPA. Well, like you said, I mean, they were created by an act of Congress, and it takes an act of, literally the act of Congress to make anything happen, so.
Yeah, I would say staff,
Keep an eye on it.
TRPA staff is, I would say, generally in support of these ADUs at the board level, I could say.
Okay, any other board member reports? Anybody? So I think, that brings us to the other county water.
Down in, did attend the meeting. It was beautiful, really beautiful down there.
Oh, yeah.
Spring-like weather.
Yeah. Spring-like weather up here.
I know, it was really warm down there, so no, it was the first meeting we've been to in a long time, so it was good that we were there. There was some closed session stuff.
And I believe we have a closed session item to talk about the closed session item. So, that's good.
Okay, Jim, report. I've got a few items here, starting with the staffing update, 3 updates. In engineering, for project engineer, we are in the pre-employment process and looking at a March 31st start date for that new project engineer. And really some great experience coming our way, so very much looking forward to that. And also in engineering for the limited term engineering position, that advertisement closed January 30th. We had 17 applications, and we'll be interviewing 6 on March 9th. So hopefully it looks like engineering will be getting up to full strength pretty soon. And then just a couple, like, year and a half or 2. And then finally, customer service, a limited term meter tech position. After 35 applications, one of those being internal, 6 interviews, we selected Barrett Burkhardt, and he was the one internal candidate coming to us from underground repair water. And of course, that will open up a limited term position in the water department. So it goes on, Liz. So we'll begin that advertisement soon. I used to coach Pee Wee football with Barrett, actually, and his dad. So it's great to see him here at the district. Great personality, great work ethic, and it'll be a fantastic addition to customer service. Next item, just a little bit on leadership training for our own staff. We have set up 3 monthly in-house leadership training sessions. We had the first one last month. The next one is, I believe, on next Tuesday. And then the 3rd one will be in March. We have this is for our own managers, supervisors, and other emerging leaders among our own staff. We have a leadership organizational performance professional, David Ravner, coming in to facilitate these meetings. He's come to the district before, great reviews, and so it's great to have him back to help advance our culture and our high-performance workforce. And then I have Lake Valley. I talked to you last time about my meeting with Lake Valley and their ballot measure B, which is coming up at the primary election on March 3rd. So right around the corner will be have the opportunity to vote on that if you're in Lake Valley district. Again, this will raise the current $20 per year per parcel tax by $52 per year. So it would raise the total annual parcel tax to $72 per parcel per year. Again, this funding is for engines and safety equipment, not staff. And the next item is workforce housing. I'm actually going to turn it over to Shelly. And she also has, I think you're going to do an update on our America trust.
Yeah, the workforce housing thing is following up on what you were talking about, Jim, having attended that TRPA meeting. So, as you guys know, the district's been involved in the workforce housing group, which is a collection of local agencies and organizations that are trying to identify ways to remove barriers and increase opportunities for building workforce housing. So where that process is at is a housing plan is expected to be finalized in March. And once finalized, all these different agencies and organizations that have been involved in contributing to it are encouraged to bring it back to their boards to accept the plan, not necessarily adopt it, but say we accept that there are recommendations in this and that we're going to look for opportunities to implement some recommendations. I think for the district, we're already way ahead of the curve because you guys have already approved policy changes that address workforce housing, the ability to transfer sewer units for affordable housing projects, the ability to transfer sewer units within a public agency between lots. And I think something that we'll need to look at is ADUs these accessory dwelling units continue to be talked about. So once TRPA figures things out, and the city and county will likely have to make some revisions to our policy to just, how do we, as folks build them, how do we address them? So that's just coming down the pipe. And then the other thing I just wanted to give, this is kind of a feel-good update. Jose and Tony are supervisors in underground repair and the wastewater treatment plant here just returned from Mecca, Mexico, with the Tahoe delegation that went down there to visit our sister city. So it was Brooke Lane and Devil Middlebrook on the council, a few city staff, John D. from South Tahoe Refuse, 2 of his staff, 2 of our staff, and then someone from the community college that went down there. And it was really great. While down there, they visited both the university's water treatment plant as well as the town's water treatment facility and wastewater treatment facility, and offered a lot of great tip suggestions. So it was a good trip. Tony just brought back a bunch of photos, so I'll be uploading some of highlights of them on our social media over the next week, kind of highlighting that partnership. So great opportunity to build partnerships with our local agencies and this international partnership.
If I could just add one thing to that. At our meeting with the city this morning, Brooke Lane was so appreciative and complimentary of our staff that went, how important they helped interpret it. And even while they were at the university, they actually inspected the water system at the university, went to the treatment plant. So she was so thrilled that they were able to join them, and hopefully we can come back real soon.
Okay, thanks, Shelley.
Yeah.
So next we're going to talk about the water storage tank mixers. And I see Chris here. So before you go on, I wanted to say, Shelley, I let you go too soon. Thank you for getting out on front of this in terms of the public. I know the staff did a great job on that too. I think all of us are informed because we learned about it in the media. Like, well, actually not Kelly and I were here earlier. So. But thank you for that. I think everybody was well informed, and because of that, in fact, you can tell us. Was it pretty tame in terms of public outreach and concerns?
Yeah, so we did a suite of outreach for this issue. On Thursday, we sent out the press release and emailed we have about 720 customers in that Christmas Valley zone, so that are served by that Christmas Valley tank. So we, of those 720, we had 350 email addresses, so we emailed everyone, did the press release on Friday. Our yes, crews helped canvass that neighborhood, put essentially that press release on every door to tell folks to flush it. And then when we got the results back today, we sent another press release out, or that was yesterday, another press release out. What day is it? And emailed customers again. And of all of that outreach, we've heard about from 10 community members through emails or phone calls, and of those 10, 3 were upset. So I think that we did our due diligence of getting the message out, and clearly not that many feathers were ruffled because of the 10 folks we talked to. Only 3 were concerned.
Thanks, Shelley. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you, Shannon, there. I just, absolutely, as long as we're in, because I know she did a lot of work on the middle of the week.
And so if you've read the press releases, you know what I was going to say, which is that we had a mixture, oil leak from a mixture into one of our tanks. We isolated it, and no customers, to our knowledge or our expectation, were served anything but great water from our distribution system. That tank is still isolated, and we're contracting with a firm to come in and do cleaning of that tank, and we're still working on how we're going to drain it, etc. But we'll be keeping that tank offline until we have the oil completely. The issues around it, unless you need any more background than that, but the issues that we really uncovered from this situation were that the mixers that we had installed while we were using food grade oil, they were not NSF 61 certified, which is the National Sanitation Foundation, I believe.
It probably predated the standard, I would guess.
No, we actually started installing these in 2013.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so prior to that, the reason we can have these mixers in our tanks is that we have, because these tanks are large volume and they sit, quite honestly, the tops of the tanks tend not to turn over, and so they don't get mixed, and so we've had water quality problems in the tops of our tanks. So we install these mixers, and that turns the tanks over and keeps the water quality good, and so we don't have this poor water quality issue in the tanks at all. And they've been very effective at resolving that. So what we have done is pulled all of the NSF 61, the mixers that are not NSF 61 certified, we've pulled them from the tanks. And we are looking at what to replace them with. There are NSF 61 certified tanks mixers. That's what we'll be going back into the tanks with in the future. So if they do have lubricant, it will be something that, if it does get released into the tank, it actually is consumable and not just food grade, but is actually something that can be part of potable water and may actually completely dissipate and not show any sort of contamination in the water. So we're moving forward with that, and again, I said we're working on cleaning that tank before we put it back in service. We have 11 of those tank mixers have been pulled and they're out currently, and we'll be getting them back in. We have plenty of time. We're not worried about the water quality issue. Does not arise very quickly, so we've got time to make this change and get the new tank mixers in. Are there any questions?
These mixers were supposed to mix everything. Why didn't you mix the oil?
Because it's just slow, right? It's not a turbulent environment. It's not like your bullet blender at home, right? Spinning that stuff around.
Yeah, it's very low, very slow process.
It's just to keep the tank turned over so the stuff doesn't sit high. Yeah, but the oil in the center. Yeah, the oil. That's right. The oil went up there on top. It's very laminar. It's not turbulent at all.
Great. So I think we can move on to the sewer closed circuit. TV.
Good afternoon. Ryan Leaf, asset management analyst.
I figured this one would have pictures.
It's got TV in the front.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I want to give you an update on our sewer CCTV inspection program. So, condition assessment is a foundational principle of asset management, and for the past couple of years, our primary focus on our sewer side asset management program here at the district has been condition assessment of our gravity main lines. So, since we've acquired the new TV truck with the panorama scanner technology, we've been able to increase the amount of inspections we're doing each year. And the goal that we have set for our asset management program is to inspect 10% of the gravity system per year, so that we're seeing the whole system after a 10-year period. Right now, we have our sewer crews performing inspections 5 days a week, and all of those inspections are coded using the NASCO PACP standard. So that's a national standard. It gives real granular guidelines for how to code the defects that we're seeing in the pipes. So it'll give us a great data set as we continue to move along here. So I can show you where we've been inspecting. This is a map of where we've inspected in the system over the past 10 years. So we had given you a presentation on this back in 2018 as part of the Proposition 218 process. So that year we really kicked the inspection program into high gear. And the focus that year was to get a representative sample of the system so that we could inspect areas of the system that would give us what we hoped to be kind of a big picture of how our system was doing. And that's the data that we used during the Proposition 218 process. So that would be those dark blue lines that were done in 2018. And then in 2019, we changed our focus so that we were expanding the areas around that. We have been inspecting upcoming project areas. We've also been inspecting all of the pipes on our enhanced cleaning list, so we will call those the EC pipes. These are going to be typically the pipes that we have problems with. So they're in areas that have a lot of grease. We clean those on a monthly basis just to make sure that everything's going okay there. So we've been, trying to get out and inspect all of those pipes because those are our problem areas, and we've done most of them. The new camera that we should have here in the next week or two will allow us to get to the remaining pipes on the enhanced cleaning list. They're in areas that are not accessible with the current equipment that we have. But you can kind of see there where we did in 2018. Those dark blue lines are kind of all over the place. That was our intent to get that representative sample. And in 2019, we kind of expanded that into different neighborhoods we were interested in looking at. And then in 2020, one of our priorities is going to be looking at some of the project areas that we have on the upcoming 10-year plan, as well as expanding inspection around areas where we've found problems. So any place we found problems and made repairs, this would be areas around Larch and Osgood. We want to inspect the surrounding areas and see if we're seeing any other problems that are in that area. Okay, and then I can give you a little bit of analysis on the data that we have so far. So the presentation today will include analysis on inspections done through January of 2019. There is a gap of data that we've had inspected and not coded. So anything after January of last year, we've been doing the inspections and we're actually on track as far as our goal of completing 10% of the system per year, but those inspections have not been coded. We work with a consultant to code those, and we have kind of been in between consultants. So right now we have over 80,000 linear feet of footage that needs to be coded. And I'll talk a little bit about that process. That is expected to happen soon. We're working on putting together a list of consultants who can do that work. So we should be getting a big chunk of data that we'll be able to analyze over the next couple of months here. But this is a summary, as I said, for January of 2019, and I'll talk about some of the defects that we've seen. So pipes with sags, we broke these out between the enhanced cleaning pipes and the pipes that are not on the enhanced cleaning list, because we're seeing that on the EC pipes, we're seeing more problems as we expected, so more prevalence of sags. So the percentage of pipes that we've inspected on the EC list, we're seeing 40% of those have had sags, and 13% of the pipes on the EC list that we've inspected have had sags and other defects. So we've kind of projected that out based on the pipes that we've looked at to the whole system, and we've expected about 9.5% of our pipes system-wide to have sags, 3.5% of those pipes to have sags and other defects. And the 3.5% figure that you're looking at there, we've combined the EC pipes and the non-EC pipes, but we've weighted those EC pipes differently to kind of, so it doesn't impact that number inversely, because we're seeing a higher percentage of those pipes. And I just want to point out that this is about 960 pipes total is what this data is based off of. So it's about 15% of our system that we've inspected and analyzed so far. And then here is a summary of pipes with point defects. So for this analysis, the point defects that we're looking at are holes, fractures, deformation, and missing or projecting surface aggregate. So there's a list of defects that we've been looking for. So we found 211 pipes with defects, about 22% of the pipes that we've inspected. The average number of defects per pipe we're seeing is about 2.7, so 3 defects per pipe. We're expecting, based on this, when we project out system-wide, we're expecting that we'll see about 1,463 pipes that will have these point defects. That does not include root defects. So 9% of our system is the projected amount that will have root defects. So we're seeing higher prevalence of roots in the pipes than we have in the past, mostly in the joints and coming in from the laterals.
Excuse me, when you say pipes, you mean sections between
Yes.
manholes?
Thank you, Jeff.
So that can be hundreds of feet.
Correct. So these are averaging between, they're about 280 feet on average, but it's about, fluctuates between 250 feet per segment to about 350 feet per segment. But that's correct. So these will be segments between manholes. So anytime I talk about pipes, that's what we're talking about. Okay, and then the other grouping of defects that we're looking at are continuous structural defects. So these would be things that are longitudinal defects that extend for a period of the pipe segment. So it starts at one point and it's kind of continuous for a portion of that pipe. The average length of pipe segments that we're seeing these in is about 286 feet. And we're expecting that we might see about 83 pipes in the system that have these longitudinal defects. The most common defects we're seeing in this group are missing surface aggregate, problems with the linings, and extended fractures. And then I'll talk a little bit about what we do with these different kinds of defects. So here's a list of the typical corrective action that we take based on the type of defect. So for point defects, and that's going to be about 22% of our system, that's our projection based on this data. The repair method for those is typically going to be a spot repair. So we'll go in and repair just the point that's defective, and we don't have to replace or line the entire pipe. And then for the root defects, right now we've had great luck with the Root X herbicide. So this is something that the sewer crew is able to put down the pipe and it kind of foams up, and it basically kills the roots and they dry up and then kind of go down the line. So far that's been an affordable way to take care of the roots, and it's been real effective. So they've been happy with the performance we're seeing there. So it's not too bad, but we could also do spot repairs if the roots are actually, coming through the pipe. And then for the 1.2% of pipes that we expect to have continuous longitudinal defects, we're looking at full CIPP lining, so cast in place pipe that will line the entire pipe segment to take care of those extended defects. So we're looking at 1.2% of the system, or 83 pipe segments total is the projection for those projects. And then the pipes that have sags and other defects are the ones that we're most concerned about in the short term. Those typically need to be open trench replacements. So that'll be a full replacement project to deal with those sags. There's nothing else we can really do to fix those sagging pipes. And we're focused on the pipes that are sagging and also have other defects. So those are going to be our worst pipes, and those will be the priority for those mainline replacement projects. And then we have some 2019 estimates for total project costs. $500 per linear foot for the open trench construction. So that'll be the mainline replacement projects. And then the cast in place pipe lining is about $181 per linear foot now is our 2019 project cost estimate. And then I wanted to show you, since this program is new, we're just starting to get all of this data in as we do these inspections at this increased pace. So we had done previous analysis of the first round of data that we had, and that was presented to the board as part of the Proposition 218 process. At that time, we had inspected and coded 425 pipe segments, or about 6.5% of the system. And you can see there that the numbers we saw during that analysis have changed as we did the same analysis on a much larger data set. So now we're looking at 963 pipe segments, about 15% of the system. So the projections have changed. The percent of pipes that we projected would have sags system-wide has gone from 14% to 9.5%. The percent of pipes with point defects has gone up slightly from 19% to 22%. And those continuous longitudinal defects, our projection for how many of those we're going to see system-wide actually went down quite a bit. So it just happened that the first data set we were looking at happened to have more of those, and now we're getting a better picture as we move along here. So that has been adjusted to about 1.2% of the system.
Right, of the 963 pipes, how much of that is on the EC list?
156, I believe. So right now, our EC list total is 312 pipes, so just under 5% of the system is on the EC list. And right now, we've inspected about a little more than half of those pipes. And then, like I said, that will be a priority once we get that new camera that can get out into the meadows more easily. One of our priorities is to inspect the remaining EC pipes so we can get an idea of what we're looking at there, because those are, as I said, the ones that we have the most problems with and the ones that we expect to have problems with. So this is just a look at how these numbers will change as we get more data. So we're really kind of hitting this hard, and we'll have, once we get our big slug of data coded, we'll be able to give you another update.
That's going to be a critical path, right?
Yes.
Your coding. So are you going to be able to get that on schedule so we can really consider that with our next year's rate increases?
Yes, we should be able to. We're hoping, and I'll talk, let me go on to the next steps here. So what we're doing right now, we posted a request for qualifications back at the end of December for new coding consultants, and we're taking a different approach this time around. So in the past, we've worked with one consultant. This time, we are hoping to build a list of qualified consultants that we can send work to. So it'll allow us to send work to multiple consultants at the same time if we have it, so we can move a little faster. And we're hoping that that will make them a little more competitive. So,
Any problem with consistency of standards?
the PACP standards are extremely rigid. So we have seen some of that in the past. And typically what we've seen is that some coders are coding things that are maybe not defects. So we haven't seen it be too lax. If anything, it's gone the other way. And what I've heard is that we've had pipes where there are chips at the joints where during construction they kind of used a pry bar to put those together. And they've coded that as missing aggregate. So it's not really a sign of, a defect in the pipe. That's part of the construction. So we've seen things like that. But the idea behind that NASCO PACP standard is that anyone who's certified to do it is supposed to produce the same results. And when we do this, all of our sewer crew is PACP certified, so we do the QA/QC on any work that we get from the consultants. So we're kind of keeping track of that. That's another benefit to doing it this way, where we'll have a list, is that the way we set this up is that we can give the work to any consultant on the list that we want to. So if we see someone who's not performing, then we won't be sending them any more work. So we can kind of do it that way.
It also allows us to send the same pipes for multiple contractors, right? So we may have
A sampling to see what you get.
and just see how they compare, and then we also can double check that if there's conflicts.
Yeah, and that we've talked about doing that, especially at the start as we bring these new consultants on. We think that's an easy way to get an idea of consistency, so we know what to expect. But the big goal there is to eliminate that large backlog of video that we have that just hasn't been coded. We expect that they should be able to get through that fairly quickly, and it'll be a large data set that will be coming into us, so we should be able to do the analysis in the short term. So we're just hoping to get started with these consultants in the next month or so. We've already had a couple submissions. And then one of the other things that's in progress right now is there's a software called Abyss Extract, and this is a artificial intelligence software that can actually now analyze the video itself, and it takes what they market as a first pass at it. So the software can analyze the video, and then it will spit back a list of defects. It doesn't do full PACP coding, but It allows you to skip from defect to defect. It will make suggestions on what kind of defect you're looking at, so it greatly reduces the amount of staff time in looking at some of these videos. You can skip past the good parts of the pipe. So one of the ways that we're excited to use this is that we got a large amount of video from Southwest Gas, and Arizona Pipeline was their subcontractor. So for the past several years, the projects that they've been doing, part of their workflow is to TV our main lines, and they also TV laterals to make sure that they're not putting gas pipes through our pipes. So we were able to get that footage from them, and we've got a giant hard drive full of it. So this extract software is what we have set in mind for that software, because then we can kind of run through the Arizona Pipeline footage, and we can look at anything that's the worst. Or, you know, if we see a pipe that the software is flagging a bit of, a whole bunch of defects, we can send that off to the consultant for coding without spending too much time wading through, you know, the pipes that don't have problems. Since we have quite a bit of data from them, we want to make that useful without, you know, spending too much time sorting through that. Several years worth of projects. And then what we're hoping to do with this data as we move forward is to have it inform a data-driven approach for our capital projects. So we're already doing that, and we have 4 capital sewer projects in the 10-year plan. We have 2 lining projects, Valdezview and Upper Truckee, and we have 2 mainline replacements, Ski Run and Shop Street are in the 10-year budget. And so what we're doing with this is we're informed by some of this data that we've gotten back, and we're also using that to prioritize where we do our inspections moving forward, so that we can, you know, better define those project areas and kind of look around those project areas. We're also looking around water project areas that are upcoming, so that if we have an area where we're doing a water project, we're making a point to inspect the gravity mains in that area to see if there's a possible sewer project that can be done at the same time there that would be more cost effective. So those are some of the ways that we're using this data, and we're going to continue to use that. And as we get more of it, the data will become more useful, and we'll be able to have more confidence in the projections that we're making. And then at the end of the 10-year period, hopefully we'll be able to know exactly what shape our system's in. And then that'll be great. But one of the other things that we're doing with this is refining the enhanced cleaning list. So out of those 312 pipes on it, we've been hydro cleaning those monthly. And that has, the last time we looked, it's about over 2,000 man-hours per year to do the hydro cleaning on that enhanced cleaning list. So the feedback we were getting from our sewer crew is that maybe some of the pipes on that list don't need monthly cleaning. So we're using this inspection data to kind of refine that, and we're coming up with a list of pipes that maybe need to be cleaned every 2 or 3 months. So we're trying to make that process a little more efficient and a little more condition-based, so that we're not cleaning pipes that don't need it, or cleaning pipes that don't need to be cleaned so frequently. It also saves the wear and tear of cleaning those. So those are a few ways that we're using this data already and looking to use it in the future. But I just wanted to give you an update of what the methodology that we're using to analyze it, and it will keep coming back to you as we get more data and have more confidence in these numbers. Are there any questions?
Just one quick question. When you were looking at the percentages based on the back of some pipes, was that weighed differently because there were so many easy pipes on that as a result of the 9%, 2%, so on and so
It was. We did account for the weight of those EC pipes, and a disproportionate percentage of those EC pipes that we're seeing that have those defects. Yeah.
And then just to John or Shannon, did any of the percentages concern you more than anything else? Is this what you anticipated to see? Just out of curiosity.
You know, we're so early, I think, still in our system analysis. I'll be able to much better answer that question when we get this 80,000 linear feet. We have, I don't think anything is surprising at this point, because I don't necessarily have a preconception of what we're getting into out there. We have done a relatively, small portion of the system to add on to a little bit of what Ryan was saying, the crews actually recognize that since we have this backlog of actually coating these pipes, and so they actually switched over from using the pano camera that runs up the pipe and comes back that has to be coated to actually using the pan and tilt camera where they sit there and look at it so that they can see and give us more real-time feedback. It's a slower process, but it's giving us more data information today, and so we're seeing, we're getting a better feeling for what's happening in those pipes and those systems. And I think when you compare the 400-something pipes to the 900-something pipes, that there's not a radical shift in those numbers that is something that's knocking our socks off. You know, we didn't see things quadrupling, although we saw some reductions there and some shifting of where the defects were and what types of defects they were. My long answer to your short question is, at this point, I'm not surprised that we're seeing what we're seeing. I'm happy that we haven't seen more catastrophic stuff out there that we're aware of at this point. I hope we continue in that vein. Therefore, we will be less in the emergency mode where we have been on a few projects in the past, and more in the, okay, we know these problems exist, we're proactive, we can get out, we can plan a project and do them so much more cost effectively than we've been able to do them when we had those emergency situations arise. And Julie has looked at this data in more detail than I have. Did you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple things that I noticed, because they were taken into consideration when we developed the proposed budget for the coming year. And that's basically that last year when we made the projections for what we thought we were going to need for annual replacement rates, full open trench replacement rates for our sewer system, we said, we're just going to assume that roughly 10% of the sags that we saw is going to need full replacement. We took a different approach this year. This year, with the 900 pipes, we said, well, 9.5% of the pipes had sags in them, but we're probably only going to replace a pipe that has a sag in it if we're also seeing other defects. And so we went down that path, and that's where we ended up with the 3.5% number. And we said that all of those pipes we expect are going to need to be replaced because those sags are causing some other larger problem within the system, you know, eating away at the pipe, causing it to clog, things like that. And so, anyway, that's sort of point number one, is that we change, that you're going to see a change in our assumptions about how much gravity main needs to be open cut, replaced, than from what we said last year. And it went up. It was something like 1,500 linear feet per year last year, and this year it's 3,000, 3,200, something like that. Conversely, with the CIPP data, or the CIPP recommendation, those numbers went down based on our analysis this year. We saw fewer of these continuous defects once we added the additional 500 pipes to the analysis. And so in our 10-year plan, based on what we know as we sit here, we don't think there's going to be as many opportunities for us to use CIPP to do the repairs. So that's how we're using it, on kind of with the information that we know right now and how it was different from last year.
Yeah, I like the new methodology in terms of sags and also needing those other defects to inform that full replacement. So that was, I guess I was pleasantly surprised that the numbers on continuous problems went so far down, but going from about a 9% data set to a 15% data set, and you're going to see a lot of bouncing around. And as we
be interesting to see in this next data set, which is a fairly large number,
right,
that how much it changes.
And I think also, we're very concerned. I think about the Tahoe Keys, especially. We found that major problem on Emerald Road that our guys were able to fix very quickly and inexpensively for like 15 grand versus a $400,000 number like we encountered at the pump station a couple of years prior. So we did a lot more TV work since then in the Tahoe Keys and didn't find any major defects, which was also a good surprise.
So was that methodology change you discussed, was that captured throughout all these numbers? I guess where I'm going with this is, I can't remember the first data set, what year that was, and then the second data set. That methodology, is that reflected in both the 425 and 963, or just the 963? You see where I'm getting at this?
So, if you go back to the slide that shows, like the sags and defects, I assume is kind of what you're asking about. So that methodology was applied to all 963.
Okay. No, but I mean the initial.
So he's looking at the 280.
The initial numbers that you're seeing are what we originally reported last year for 218. So they did not reflect, that we didn't modify and analyze those 400 and something pipes with the new methodology, although we did in terms of they're part of the 900 pipes.
Right.
So we did report
Separate
that
it out.
in
Like, I was just trying to, as I was trying to, contextualize the various different flow of numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't go back to that subset of 400 some odd pipes and do that same sags plus defects analysis on just that subset.
I've just got a couple of questions. Could I get a copy of this?
Yeah.
And have you taken any of these numbers? I just have a problem converting the percentage of different lengths of pipes to the, and projecting them out over the, well, we got 1.8 million linear feet of pipe out there, something on that order.
I think it's 1.675 or somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah, so it's I want it down to the, I'm really concerned about the stuff that's in the meadows, and we get those pictures.
Cameron's gonna do first.
Yeah, I know, but we need to move ahead on that, and is there any way, I mean, this is, we've done 1/10. We've got 90% that hasn't been done. And we're kind of, I know we've been looking at 10% a year. Is there any way of increasing that so we can get a better picture quicker of what the rest of the system is?
Well, just to make sure we're all on the same page, the 900 and something, that represents 15%, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so we've actually analyzed 15%, and that's only through footage that was collected as of January 2019. So then we've got all of 2019, that 80,000, was it 80,000 linear feet?
80,000, it's a little over 80,000 linear.
Which is roughly 10%? It's more than 10%.
So in reality, once you get all the data that you have processed, we'll have over 25%.
We'll be in the 20 to 25% range as we sit here today, right?
Maybe a little more than 10% a year, but not,
Yeah.
it's still going to be a long time.
So good to answer, if I can go back to your question, was can we do this faster, essentially? And so it's about resourcing in dollars, and the way there is a way to do that, which other agencies do, particularly when they get into situations where they're not in compliance with the regulators and they're in cease and desist orders and things like that. They will hire firms to come in and just do massive effort in their whole system. They're quick. They get in. They do both the coding and the analysis. I think in our opinion, that was a discussion we had when we purchased the new truck. Was, hey, we can go out and do this, and it's going to cost us twice what the new truck is going to cost, and then we get one snapshot, right? One snapshot in time. And we have somebody else come in and do it versus us doing it slowly over time, and then maintaining that expertise in-house and looking at our own pipes. And so the decision at that time was, we're gonna buy the truck and we're gonna do this in-house with our own resources. We're not gonna bring people in from outside to do this for us. And I'm an advocate of that position. And yeah, I'd love to have more data and more information of what we're doing. But I think the way that we're collecting it, I think is the right way. It is a cost-effective and reasonable way to do it.
We also need that money that's allocated, we start working on some of these pipes and replacing them. Like how many pipe linear feet are we going to do this year?
2,200.
How much?
2,200 linear feet, the Apache Avenue project. Yeah. And then we've got, did you write those down, Brian? The projects that we have defined after Apache Avenue.
Yes, we have the AD-HOC CIPP lining project, which is about 3,200 lineal feet. Upper Truckee CIPP lining projects, 3,800. And we have two mainline replacement projects. Ski Run mainline replacement is just under 4,200 linear feet, and Shop Street mainline replacement about 1,400 linear feet. So those are in the 10-year plan.
In 10 years, you know, but like this is what, 2,000 out of 1.7, 1.8 million, whatever it is.
Yeah, so we're kind of in a ramp-up period as we, you know.
We're gonna be able to ramp up, or is this gonna be, we're gonna be constrained by money again?
Well, in the data, that's one of the hopes, is that as we get a fuller picture, we'll be better able to make recommendations and see what makes sense from the point of cost effectiveness and what needs to be done.
We're never gonna have all the information that we need to do everything, but we know that there are areas that we need to go in and do, and we ought to start, you know, doing more of those. I know you're constrained, you're doing a kind of a triage job out there, you know, what's the worst condition and what do you need to do, but I think the board has to step up, give you some more money.
Yes. So, you know, the needs-based plan that we have developed is based on the data, right? And so the amount of linear feet of CIPP and gravity replacement on that plan reflects the data that we've seen so far. And then we have a shorter budget-based plan that's reflective of the Prop 218 that we're in right now. And that plan does have fewer projects on it. If I remember correctly, there's 4 projects that are currently unassigned that got knocked off the end to be able to fit with the budget. So, you know, we're not quite funding, to answer your question, to the level that the data is currently suggesting that we should. But we had to kind of make a decision about what projects get pushed off the end, and we tried to make a balance between the gravity sewer system and pump stations and all the other priorities of the wastewater treatment plant and so on. And so.
And it also gets to the question, how fast do you think we need to make those corrections in the linear system? Is it 10 years or?
Well, I think this kind of speaks to the process we've taken thus far to some degree, in that we didn't have this data. And so we would be operating under assumption with other people's money, which is also obviously
We're heading in the right direction. And the other thing, I guess, this is great information for us as a board. We are coming up on having this discussion in way more depth when we talk about our next budget. So this will, everybody on the board and staff's opinions and concerns will be heard.
It's complimentary effort. I study a lot of economics, so I love graphs with numbers, and somebody just did a great job in concise this to make it.
They might have a treatment for that.
I gotta get some better on.
Ryan, I think what you're hearing is next time in pie charts.
Yeah, this is cool stuff. There'll be plenty more coming.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, if I could, I don't know if you could convert this to numbers of linear feet, that would be interesting. That's a little easier to comprehend.
All right.
Yeah, I think next meeting we'll take kind of a similar look at the water side.
Correct. Yeah, next time I'll be talking about water leaks that we saw last year.
Mark it in my calendar.
Yeah.
Well, Randy, the timing of this is not by accident. We wanted to give you enough.
No, I
information.
appreciate this.
Yeah.
This is exactly the
To
process.
go into that
that's
budget.
taking place, right?
Yeah, but you kind of know what's going on. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, South Water feasibility study. Evo, I thought Jennifer was here to listen to you. And then she's gone. She left.
afternoon, and I just wanted to give you an update again. The last update I gave you was at the beginning of the year, the first meeting in January. And at that meeting, what we did was we talked about the three interim remedial alternatives that were selected for detailed analysis for the feasibility study. So at that time, they were in the midst of doing that detailed analysis, and the alternatives, each of the alternatives were evaluated for effectiveness, implementation, and cost. We kind of went a little bit by showing you some of the results of that analysis, and at that point, it was anticipated that alternative 2, option 1, would be the recommended alternative. Well, I'm going to give you a brief update on the current status of the feasibility study, as well as provide you a schedule for completion of this work. And then I want to raise some issues that would be associated with the implementation of the project if the project ever got built. And so if you look in the lower right of the title slide, you can see some language that was taken out of the agreement. I just want to highlight that. Basically, it says that just because we received funding for this planning grant does not commit either the State Water Board or I guess the recipient of those funds to actually apply and submit an application for implementation. So here's the review schedule. Kind of shows where we are now and where we're going. So we completed the draft feasibility study report. That was completed on the 18th. It actually went out to the technical advisory committee, which is headed up for the membership includes representatives from the State Water Board, Lahontan, DPW, City of South Lake Tahoe, the water purveyors. It's the major pieces of that TAC. We're in the process of completing the interim remedial action plan. So this is basically an outline of things to happen in terms of implementing that preferred alternative that comes out of the feasibility study. We're looking to get comments back from the TAC in a couple weeks, and we're in the process of scheduling the TAC review meeting to go over review comments in the early part of March. And then after that, after we include those comments, we plan on issuing a draft of the feasibility study report and the interim legal action plan and roll it out to the public for a kind of 30-day public comment period. In the middle of that, we plan on convening a workshop where we're going to bring attention to those documents that are out there, and then answer initial questions about those documents. At the end of the public comment period, we'll take those comments that are received, and then those will be processed and addressed, and it will be a summary report that just basically is a compilation of those comments and then how they're answered. That would be used as an attachment to either the final feasibility study or IRAC report. So, as far as remedial alternatives, so this is a slide that I used in the January staff report. The only thing that's been kind of modified a little bit are the names of the alternatives. So alternative 1 is the no action alternative. The highlighted Alternative number 2, targeted pumping with potable reuse, is the recommended alternative out of the feasibility study. And then the other alternative that was analyzed was a source conversion from groundwater to surface water source. With the targeted pumping and potable reuse, what that involves is basically relying on the Lucan Brothers Water Company number 5 well. They received funding through a different grant for wellhead treatment, and that well will be operated to meet existing water system demands for the Lucan Brothers system. The alternative 2 also includes construction of a new 200-gallon per minute replacement well and water treatment system, drinking water treatment system that will be located on Lucan Brothers property at the end of Hazel Avenue, at the former Lucan Brothers number 4 well site. And then so that replacement well would be used to provide additional PCB removal and plume control in the middle section of the groundwater plume, and would also provide a new source of drinking water supply in the South White area.
Lucan Brothers 5, that's about 450 GPM.
That's going to be 700 gallon per minute well.
700.
Yeah, I think it's 720. So for that targeted pumping potable reuse, how we got to the second part of the potable reuse, as you recall, we looked at different discharge options during the feasibility study. One of them was potable reuse. We also looked at a discharge to waste option. And if we discharge to waste using the district sewer fees, for the amount of water that would go into the system, those costs over 20 years come up to a little over $20 million. And then if we did discharge to district sanitary sewer during the winter months and then during the dry months, in summer, potential discharge to the city's stormwater system, you can reduce that cost to about $13.5 million. On the lower right portion of the slide, this is a figure or a cartoon that was produced from the regional plume characterization work that was completed by the Hopping last year. And R1 is the replacement well, so it's next. The R1 is pointing to actually a boring location that was situated right next to the Lucan Brothers number 4 site. So to give you an idea where it's located within the contaminant plume, it's kind of in the midsection towards the east central portion of the plume. So with that said, as far as items that I'd like to talk a little bit more about as far as issues with potential implementation of this project. First is ownership. Who's going to take ownership of this implementation? The project is Lucan Brothers Water Company. Is Jennifer? She's gone.
She left. She said she's got another meeting, but she's going to try to wrap that afterwards.
Okay. So Lucan Brothers has expressed a willingness to take the lead as owner. So what does that mean? So I just listed a few items here as to what would be the role and responsibilities of the owner for this project. First, on the grant funding application, they would be identified as the owner, and as such, they would be responsible for completion of the grant application and basically doing what we've done through the planning grant, being responsible for completing the scope of work underneath that funding agreement. They would also be responsible for leading the planning, permitting, construction of the new facilities, that again would be replacement well and a water treatment plant, an accompanying water treatment plant. They would also be responsible for the ongoing operations and maintenance of that facility. And under a implementation grant, that has a span of about 20 years. That's what they require for that proper funding. And they would also be responsible for meeting all of the monitoring and reporting requirements to DPW that would be required for that facility. What we talked about at the last staff report, one of the benefits of having Luca Brothers as the lead or owner of the project is that there's a funding match requirement is significantly reduced down to about as much as 5 to 3% of the total project costs. So it's about 20% to less than half of what the natural district was to take the lead as owner on this project. Okay, so again with this recommended alternative, the new replacement well, which is called R1, would produce as much as about 100 million, a little over 100 million gallons per year of treated water that would be available for bottled reuse. Now, this is in addition to the treated water which is being produced by Luca Brothers number 5, which is going to be used to meet their water system demands. So in order to make this most cost effective and optimize the PCE removal, that treated water needs to be consumed. So the most logical place or most likely place that it would be consumed would be in the neighboring water systems. That would be Tahoe, Keys, and the district, and or the district. So in order to kind of formalize the terms and conditions under which that purchased water would be provided under, you would need an agreement. And so I wanted to just kind of highlight some of the items and issues that would need to be considered as part of this purchase water agreement. First thing that I know this is not any type of priority in order, but for water quality, we would have to discuss what level of water quality would be acceptable for bringing it to the district's water system. Also, in terms of water quality, what type of frequency of monitoring would we be comfortable with? Where would that monitoring occur? Would it occur at the water treatment plant? Would it occur from samples that are taken maybe at the intertie between the two water systems? So those types of details would need to be worked out. Water quantity would be another thing that would need to be worked out. That may depend on what the district needs are. The district, for some time, has had challenges of providing water to the South Y area. So this is an opportunity to meet that challenge through this, as one means. I mean, be weighed against other alternatives, of course, but then there's purchase price or cost for the water. If an average water production cost in 2019 for district water, you can see was a little over $3 for 1,000 cubic feet. If you take a look, initial estimate from the treated water production costs, from the costs that were generated during the feasibility study, we're looking at more than 2 times that cost. for that treated water. The term of the agreement, there would have to be some type of commitment as to how long we would be looking to purchase water from Luca Brothers. They would be committed to a 20-year project life, so I think that would be something that would come into play. Other considerations that may be included in this water agreement would be operational roles and responsibilities. May come up that maybe the district wants to take responsibility for operating the water treatment plant. If we're going to be getting, or if that water is going to be coming into our system, since we have larger and more experienced crews with water treatment, that might be something that may be up for discussion. Water delivery, again, the point of where we would be taking the water, how it would be metered, what types of pressure requirements would we be requiring to bring that water into our system, liability, insurance and indemnity, termination of the agreement, and we may want to also consider how we're going to integrate this new water source along with our other district water supplies.
Just a question back on the cost, treated at $6.50, treating the low.
That would be to drinking water standards.
Less than 5 parts.
Correct. If the district or position that they wanted to impose a non-detect on that, then those costs would go up.
What's non-detect?
Non-detect would be 0.5. 0.5 instead of 5 parts per billion.
By the time I get this going, it'll be measured in parts per trillion.
Well, no. I don't think, it's been 0.5 for, 30 years. So, with PFAS and things like that, they're parts per trillion there. So that's, I've not heard about that.
Well, it just wasn't that long ago that most things were measured in parts per million.
It's been more than 30 years.
Yeah, but like they're going. Yeah.
So the next steps, I guess, the way that, from my point of view, is the first thing is to complete the work that we're under contract for, the funding agreement with the feasibility study. That's supposed to be wrapped up by the end of June. So these are the remaining items, big items that we're making to complete over the next several months. Completing the environmental checklists, going through that public comment process, completing those reports, which we're shooting for to complete by somewhere around the end of April. Then after that, there are final project reports and then the disbursement requests that we need to get in to tie up or to complete our commitments for that project. And then after June 30th, I think that we would probably want to engage with the other water purveyors, Tahoe and Luca Brothers, and really get into the weeds and talk in detail about a purchase water agreement, what types of terms and conditions would, how that water would be used, and then going through that process, then we would have, I think, a better idea of whether we would actually move forward trying to seek money or go after money for through that Prop 1 program as far as putting together a grant application. It doesn't make sense to me to jump right in and start working, putting in resources to put together a grant application on something that maybe nobody wants to do. So again, that's, I think, why that purchase water agreement is important, that we have some kind of understanding before we go to that next step of trying to garner funds or get funds from the state for construction of this project, of this potential project. So, with that, any questions?
Is Tahoe Keys developing a purchase agreement as well?
Tahoe Keys, I hope. The representatives on the TAC from Tahoe Keys are also bringing this up for discussion with their board. I have suggested that, again, that each of the water purveyors kind of update their boards to let them know what's going on and try to, introduce these ideas to them and try to get some feedback. And, I don't know if you need any feedback now, but, I'd like to get some idea without a commitment as far as your willingness to possibly entertain entering into a water purchase agreement or looking at a water purchase agreement for the use of that water.
I'd love to hear a lot more from John and Shannon addressing that on this. I mean, not to.
No, I'm not asking.
Presentation was comprehensive, you know.
What's that?
Not that your presentation was comprehensive, but we need a more global look at this as how this would integrate with the rest of our resources and all that. So,
If I can jump in, and I have a question for you, Evo, just to make sure I'm understanding what we're talking about is essentially with the water purchase agreement, we would be basically paying more for lower quality water, that being water that has some degree of PCE in it, than we are currently extracting and serving to our customers. Is that where we're at? And that's kind of the question the water purchase agreement would, a fundamental question that we have to answer first.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. But I mean, again, there are benefits to this. Benefits are, we had a problem in the Garden Mountain Zone as far as providing water supply. I think we've considered or looked at options kind of at a very high level that would probably be, at least as much cost, maybe even more cost to implement. So there's that, and there's also the benefit as far as the groundwater cleanup that it would support and mitigation that it provides for minimizing impacts to down gradient sources at Weaver Brothers and at Tahoe Keys. So, yeah, I mean,
And I completely agree with you, particularly that we have heard from staff, I think several times, the desire to bring another water supply on for the district. And particularly at the Y or in that area to address this issue. And all the conversations we've had, those are much more expensive solutions than what this solution would provide to us. So I completely agree. I mean, my personal opinion is it'd be great to clean up this contamination and resolve a long-standing and really long-term problem for the district of getting water in that area that hasn't been, thus far, hasn't ended up in an emergency situation, but we could be trending that way, and that's something that is of concern for the long term. So I think you're dead on in the benefits of pursuing this solution. Again, the question is about water quality. If we drilled a test well out there and it had this level of PCE that we would be purchasing, would we continue with that well is one way to think about this problem. If it was our well, we were digging a test well, would we continue to develop that well with PCE contamination? Is there additional treatment that can be done to bring the PCE contamination down to non-detectable?
There certainly is. I mean, you wouldn't. It would just be a matter of cost. It would be a higher frequency of change out of the carbon that would increase the costs.
So we're curious to see another text about cost as well. I mean, fundamentally, from the logistics and political you then be asking the community to be consuming water that formerly had PCE, which is going to be terribly untenable to lots and lots of people.
Well,
Again, I know the science, I'm not arguing that. We can go to the supermarket today and start talking science with some folks, and you can see how understanding the art and subject matters. But what I'm going to say to you is that a lot of people will have issue with that.
Sure.
And then looking at it in terms of cost, I think the idea of solving multiple challenges at the same time is a great one. But to say it's just more expensive is meaningless. It's arbitrary. So as we get further along, this I wouldn't expect it today, obviously, but just some accounting for that as ballpark, obviously, as to what you're looking for, the cost savings to really package this all together so we can have a sense of we're not paying $3.40 more for a degraded product. So to have a more holistic look at all of it.
Just real quick, based on these estimated figures that you have here right now, if the district was to receive all 105 million gallons of that water into our system, and we had to pay for this treatment, it's about $91,000 a year.
If it's going to the wastewater treatment system.
No, that's not
No.
our
Okay, if we're actually purchasing water, it's additional
Yeah.
$90,000.
I got a 0.5 parts per billion level, so
no, that would be drinking water standard,
Yeah,
is that below 0.5?
no,
below 5.
5.
Below 5. Right. Now, the district in the past has served water at the drinking water, below the drinking water standard with PCE in it, so it's not like this is a new precedent.
Right, but the new precedent is South Lake Tahoe. We're taking PCE water from the Keys, and we're going to be pumping it to your house.
The new president is, we actually like this stuff so much, we're lying.
That's what I'm saying. I appreciate what you're saying, it's scientific reality, and I don't disagree with you at all. But there's
Community engagement.
community engagement in reality that we need
Yeah,
to.
there's a public perception of that, and we went through that with the MQBE, and people forever said, but the board at that point decided non-detect. We were not gonna produce any water, because there was a lot of response from not only people locally, but out of the area. At that time, Dwayne was with the Chamber of Commerce, and they were getting phone calls asking if they needed to bring water, to Lake Tahoe. And so I think we do anything.
If I could raise another issue, sorry not to cut you off, Jim.
Well, I was just, I was making a point where I think we need to go down non-detect.
Another issue here in my mind is the issue with the polluters, right? What we have gone forward with on our advocacy side with, at both the state level, with Lahontan, with the state board, with legislators, with the federal level, has been a fundamental issue of that the ratepayers in South Tahoe should not be paying for this cleanup. This was not our mess. We didn't create it. We didn't create this problem. We shouldn't be responsible for paying to clean this up. And so, whether that money is coming through the state or it's coming from a polluter, that is a very long-term issue and an advocacy issue. But keep that in mind as well. That is on the table. And Randy, Jim, when we go back to DC, that's one of the things that we will be talking about. We'll be giving folks an update of where things are standing at this point with Evo's work, with Lahontan's work, and then making this point very clearly that when it gets to the point where we need to make a decision about how this cleanup is going to be done, the fundamental issue is ratepayers shouldn't be paying for this work, shouldn't be paying for this cleanup. And what are you going to do, Mr. McClintock and Senator Feinstein, Congressman McClintock, Senator Feinstein, what are you going to do to support us when we go after people to get money to make this thing right? So far they've said, we're going to stand behind you. You just need to tell us what you need us to do. So we're definitely going to continue to push those efforts going forward in the long haul. And so, Evo, your question, if I understand it, is what's the board's feeling at this point about doing a purchase water agreement? Is it consensus on the board or majority of the board that says we got to get down to non-detect?
Yeah, let me put it this way. How about the board says, not only do we went non-detect, we don't want to buy water at any higher rate than what we can get it ourselves. So basically, we want to help you to get rid of your water if it's non-detect, but we don't want to pay more than what we could produce water ourselves, which means, to Janet's point, we are not burdening our ratepayers with that. So the difference between that money should come from either the, original,
The RPs, the council party.
The RPs, I love an acronym.
Council party.
It either comes from the RPs or from government grant money.
If it gets worse to the PRP, the probable.
Yeah, probably for RP. Does that work for you guys?
Yeah.
I got a few more comments, maybe kind of getting back to general. I mean, there's non-detect, but non-detect is not zero. There's always going to be
Well, that's that legal point oh five,
kind of
whatever.
so the community viewpoint of bringing treated water into the district. I mean, I think we need to do more cost benefit analysis, a business case analysis on our side, taking a look at the alternative projects. From my viewpoint, I mean, we have a lot of source water. We don't need this treated water.
Well, like I said, we're only doing it to be a good member of the community and to try to help.
And I think the Keys has a massive benefit by taking this treated water, and they need water because they're going to be needed to, they're already treating for PCT. And then the Keys is already taking that treated water.
They're probably already treating 25, right?
To 5.
To 5, yeah.
To 5, yeah.
Yes, right.
And the levels heading to Keys well number 1 is increasing. So they're potentially looking at a system
They
there.
use one when they need it.
But they're not a big enough system to take all of it, though.
Is that right?
I don't know how much
There would be, obviously in the summertime,
Summertime, there might
more
be.
demand, but, during the off-season, we are, we're the only water system that's large enough that would be able to consume that amount of water.
If we're turning these remedial wells all the way on, I mean, obviously you can
Well, yeah.
turn them off, and then they would take longer to treat the PCT.
I think, again, before you even get to that point is, again, there needs to be some kind of understanding of what's going to happen with that water. Who's going to take it, how much are they going to take, what's the commitment on cost, those types of things. If those can't be worked out, I'm not, again, right now, my point of view is I'm not sure why they need to even go further discussing doing this.
Well, if we don't take this treated water, then we take it to treat it, pump it in and pump it out of here, right? Go into the sewer.
Well, again, that's the $20 million cost, and so somebody's gonna have to pay for that, right? And so,
That would mean sending PC water to PC, and it does not come through. PC does not get treated by our treatment system. It does not get reduced.
no, it's going to be treated. It would be treated to drinking water standards.
Yeah, I'm saying it would be treated to drinking water standards. What I'm saying is, our treatment system at the waste treatment plant would not reduce it anymore, so we would be sending water with PC at drinking water standards potentially to Alpine County. It would be much more diluted, recognize that. But given our issues with Alpine County, recognize that decision would have potentially some ramifications on the other end.
It'd be pretty diluted though, considering the volume they're
Absolutely.
producing compared to the volume we treat already.
Absolutely.
And remember, pollution is the solution to pollution.
Absolutely.
Right. So,
Yeah, I think Randy's on the right track. The only thing I would maybe add is that just the consideration of the Gardner Mountain area, the economics around that, maybe it's like a 20-year window. So we know that would be the only other piece, but fundamentally agree with Randy.
Does that help you, though?
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate the input, and not sure when I'll get back to you next. Maybe a month or so, or maybe in April, when we get that IRAP or It'll be in March, when the time limit is rolled out on the 30-day comment period, something like that, if you want to get an update on that.
Okay. Keep us going.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Eli. So I think that brings us to the end of our open session stuff. We do have some closed session stuff, so let's do that and see if we can get going on that as quick as we can. Out of closed session, into open session, nothing to report, meeting adjourned.